So I'm glad that all of you are here today for the AWS Community event. I am a AWS partner solution architect and work with various partners on the AWS side, mainly software partners, and have seen their journey towards building enterprise SaaS solutions, and want to share some of the learnings which they have got from it, so that if your team are thinking of probably leveraging SaaS solutions yourself or even building SaaS solutions, you can take some points away from today's discussion. I know it's the last, it has been a long day, and it's been, I'm just between you and the happy hour. So I'll try to make it quick, and hopefully you catch the key points by which you can probably develop something on your organization as well. So I want to focus on this number, 250 billion. This was the estimated SaaS solution size for 2022. Looks like a very big number, but compared to the total IT spend, which was probably done last year, estimated to be 4.4 trillion, it's still a very small amount. What we see that in future, the SaaS market size is going to increase at a much larger scale. This gives a lot of businesses a very key initiative towards developing and building their SaaS solutions. We see that the appetite with large enterprises, even getting and adopting these SaaS solutions has been increasing. We have seen it across various industries. It's not like one industry, which is compliance and regulatory, would keep away from SaaS solutions. We are seeing that, and the SaaS providers are enabling these enterprises by making their solutions the right fit so that any kind of enterprise can adopt those solutions. So what is SaaS? So on AWS side, we define SaaS as any software delivery model. It's basically a software delivery model which enables an organization to offer a solution with low friction. So the key point here is low friction and a service-centric approach. Lot of enterprise providing, companies who provide software or to enterprises have been focused on product-centric approach. These softwares were deployed in the enterprise data centers. So this and the life cycle for those products was very different. Usually it has a quarter to quarter was not even thought of. It used to be an annual cycle or even larger cycles than that, where a product release, a major release would happen probably a few years, and then you would provide patches and long-term support for it for quite a while. Moving to a SaaS solution is a big culture shift for various, a lot of these organizations. But the thing is, there are a lot of these software providers have to make that switch because the whole industry is changing. There is a big appetite to consume SaaS services. The market is changing very fast. So if we see what happened in the past few years with the pandemic, the way in which services were, or even products and services, both in supply chain as well as service models, the requests which were coming in were kind of a pendulum shift, right? So we went a lot of into good services, then again into once things opened up, the consumption of services has gone up. So to map that, all the organizations, all the enterprises have to keep their business segments pretty up to date and modern so that they can come up with new solutions to target their customers. So we have seen that from enterprise perspective, for digital transformations, this is a survey which was done by a third party, but AWS did conduct that. And we see that the software as a service has been a key indicator, as pointed out in the survey by a lot of these enterprises, that is the strategy they are looking for digital transformation. they understand that there might be other important aspects in their business as well, but to leverage software as a service, basically, if you're a provider of software as a service, it helps you towards getting that growth factor for your company. It improves your multiplier for your for your stocks. So that's a great fit. For a consumer of software as a service, it helps you to launch new products and services faster. In traditional data centers where all the products had to be installed and managed by your own teams, it's a very heavy lift. Even when it's managed on AWS, it's still a heavy lift. So what we have seen is we have worked with, like AWS has worked with a lot of its partners to onboard and help them build SaaS solutions. And these SaaS solutions then make that effort to deploy any software on AWS pretty easy. So they can get started easier, build their business applications faster, and not worry about patching and upgrading the software. Let's start building. That's the whole thing. And building at the very upper tier level where your business needs are. So it's a business model, as I said. One of the key aspects of it when you have to think about building your own SaaS is the agility. Why would customers want your solution? It's about how fast you can adopt it. There are various aspects around the serverless is a very key initiative these days. So and scaling is a very key initiative. So how fast you can adopt those SaaS services, is there capability to scale up and scale down? Those are key metrics there. Innovation, as I said, from a product-driven approach where softwares were developed towards having product releases every year or every other year. We are seeing very fast innovation cycles in SaaS products. We can have a bi-weekly or a quarterly update for a lot of these SaaS solutions, which helps to get the best to their customers as soon as they want. Again, there is even if it's provided in a product manner where you are providing patches, there is a lift on the customer side to install those patches and bring that product up to mark. But with software as a service solution, because it's provided as a service, all these product improvements can immediately be shared with the customer. Now, there is something key aspect around operational efficiency. The whole idea here is a lot of automation comes in when you build in a software as a service. And when you scale that to deploy it across hundreds or thousands of customers, you build that operational efficiency so that your team can then help your customers develop things faster. That's the key aspect. So build that scale and build that automation to get the operational efficiency. And one aspect around that is growth. As I said, as I showcased in the previous slide itself, the market share for SaaS is pretty small there. Why are all the partners and customers of AWS getting into SaaS? Is again for that growth aspect. You have to design your service for that growth, because like the whole industry is moving towards that growth. It's an industry which is going to key in and look at that growth. If you're not growing on your SaaS solution, then it's probably a not right fit for what your customers are asking. You have to go back, check, because it's also focused on agility. You have to always keep checking and get a feedback from your customers and what's the right fit of service which is needed, and provide those. And that's what AWS is also built on. Like Amazon is also built on customer obsession. We always want to look back and get feedback from our customers around what's the right fit or what's the new features in the services they would want. We are seeing that partners are also adapting the same customer obsession model here, and they can then create better experience in the enterprise services. And it's reduced cycle time. So what we want to have with all of this is first, the onboarding process for a SaaS service. We want to keep that as frictionless as possible, because that's the key differentiator, right? So once you have the onboarding process pretty smoothened out, and the RTO for the customer is reduced, like they can easily onboard onto your solution and start developing things, that's when when you will see the growth. A lot of the times it's growth from two aspects. For a lot of these SaaS companies, the growth comes from new customer acquisition. That's one channel. The second one is where there has been a customer acquisition, you see more expanded use of your services. So there are twofold aspect of growth which you can see by SaaS. You might have seen these slides a lot of times, around different siloed models of deploying a SaaS solution. It's not, from my experience, what I've seen with partners and like a lot of SaaS providers, it's not one or the other. You would have like most of the SaaS providers need all of these basket of pooling methods to work for across the board, right? There are some customers who would need that siloed approach, where like a single tenant approach, where everything is deployed in a separate account. They might have some compliance requirement, or from their perspective, to earn trust from that customer, it's harder. So you can go with that approach. The other approach on the right across the other end is the pool approach, where all your customers are in a single pool. You do get much better operational excellence there, but there might be, you might have to keep up to date with all the compliance requirements, as well as new security features, as in like things are brought up. There is a mid-ground approach also here, like the bridge approach, where what I've seen, a lot of the customers, even like a lot of the partners, even if they can leverage the big pool approach, what they do is they use the bridge approach just from a perspective of also considering a blast radius, right? You want to reduce your blast radius. If things go wrong, and of course things go wrong, we always know things can go wrong. So when things go wrong, you don't want all of your customers having an impact. By having a middle bridge approach, you can then limit that, let's say if new features were released which were incorrect, or there was a security break on one of your accounts, it's still limited in scope. And that way, your overall SaaS services are not impacted. Now, I did mention around onboarding, right? So when it comes around onboarding, you want to smoothen out the onboarding process. A lot of times what we see is you can use your existing application as well. Like a lot of SaaS companies, they start with that. They have a model of how that application is deployed on-prem. Let's bring the same application on AWS. But there are these other SaaS shared services which are specifically needed to bring that like whole core, like the core is your application. You have to build all these walls around it, which will help with the whole SaaS experience, which are like routing. So whenever your new customer comes in, you want to route them. You want to provide a good identity structure. There is, of course, work will be needed towards DevOps, management and monitoring of your, so mainly the control plane for your application. Then for charging the customer, you would need metrics and billing and metering. So those are the key features which are needed for any SaaS applications. We at AWS saw that this was one of the key elements which we can help some startups or even anybody who is getting started to creating their SaaS application. So on AWS side, we have AWS SaaS Boost, which provides like that control plane, which uses serverless applications to kind of build that whole control plane for you. So you can leverage this model, deploy it on your account, do your customizations, and get started. It provides the facilities for application configuration and automation as well. So if there are where you would deploy your core application, that can be also brought in here. It provides the capability towards the admin web panel as well, and it's all built with AWS services. There might be, you might have custom applications. So first, if there are certain specific requirements, you can update that. But the idea behind here is, let's say you have an application today and you want to bring it and start and you want to get started. There is some groundwork which AWS has helped with. So this is something which you can take today and start working with right now. Other than that, there are other reference solutions. So I did say SaaS Boost is one of the solutions which is out there, but you have reference solutions in EKS, which is the containerized reference solution. You have reference solutions in using just serverless services. So all these reference solutions are out there to help you get started. So if you have an core application or software, you can leverage these reference solutions, get started with building your SaaS. You would of course need more pipeline, or every application is very different. So you need more work here, but it just gives you a blueprint to get started with, and your teams can then build more using this. So we want to accelerate this motion towards SaaS. On AWS, we have various engagement models as well. So we have teams on AWS side which can support you. So one of them is on the SaaS factory. So where your AWS team, if you're working with the AWS team, they can nominate you to the AWS SaaS factory team. AWS SaaS factory has worked with various SaaS providers, and they have various learnings which they have got from those, which then they can consolidate that learning based on what your specific needs are and work with you, so you can leverage the best practices, not only from the technology perspective but also from the business perspective around pricing and then go to market. So they can help you with all those aspects. But of course, we have limited bandwidth on our side as well. It's a nomination process. At times, it might be harder for your teams or to match timelines. We have seen that though there is interest and from both parties, it can be a challenging task to get timelines and everything matched up. So there are resources which are available public on a public portal right now, which is AWS SaaS Factory Insights Hub, where the team has build a large pool of SaaS enablement content. They have shared things around multi-tenancy, metering, billing, all those aspects. Some of them are as I said, there's some accelerators, there are reference architectures, they are use cases and customer success stories out there, which you can when your team has challenges, they can learn from it, and get the start anyways. And if you see there are roadblocks and your team needs help, AWS SAs are there, we are SAs and teams are there to support you towards that journey of building SaaS. What I've again seen for enterprise customers is compliance is a very big initiative. It's not easy to be compliant on cloud. We just before this, we heard around the shared security model, right? So AWS does take care of the security of the cloud, but security on the cloud is something which we expect our customers you would take care of. But at the same time, we provide you with certain services. I'll go over that. So we provide you with various services on AWS side to help you manage that risk. So for example, there's AWS config, which can be used to, compliance was always thought of you do your audit and probably it's not compliant after that, right? With AWS, we expect in cloud that you can check compliance in real time. With AWS config and other tools, you can actually check that all your environment is compliant. You can specifically have rules configured, which will raise alerts if things are not met. We have AWS Control Tower, as we just heard before this, that okay, the root account. If you start with a root account, that's not the right way. You have like everything in there. It's not a very good way to get started. But AWS Control Tower is a mechanism where you can leverage it to have a whole landing zone for your organization, where different teams have different access. There are different policies which can be met at organization level and can be configured there. License manager, AWS systems manager, and AWS Cloud Trail. So there are various services which we provide to get started on that security journey for you. You can oversee the risk using Guard Duty or AWS Security Hub and CloudWatch. We don't think you can just have to stop here, but at the same time, you can also leverage a lot of these partner ecosystem tools that are out there to leverage service compliance on AWS. So there are various tools which you can use from partners as well. And at the same time, there is on the assurance of the compliance side, there is Audit Manager and AWS Artifact, which helps you towards that getting your compliance picture and sharing that with your end customers. So again, so all this is part of your AWS well architected framework journey. I will go a little more deeper into that. Another thing which is part of compliance is encryption and security, right? So encrypting data is it's a very key thing which is needed for if you're building enterprise SaaS. You would need to encrypt the data at rest, in transit, and when your application is using it. But at the same time, there are I have seen enterprises asking for more. We see that, and even partners are building technology to support that what customers are asking for. Enterprises are asking for okay, I want to encrypt all that data using my key. So in case they want to revoke control of that data, then they can do that. So because it's a SaaS solution, if you're encrypting the data with my key, and if I just want to revoke all the access, I just have to take away the key, and the third-party provider would not have access to the data. So as a SaaS provider, you have to think about that. What's the greatest and latest which customers are asking for in the security domain in data encryption, and I have to keep up with that. On TLS, at this moment, we are on the AWS side, we are moving towards TLS 1.2 encryption, and so that's at the same time, you have to update your applications to support those mechanisms. Yeah. Another thing which enterprises are looking for, you want to reduce the when it comes about security and compliance, you should think about it in layers. So you want to reduce any threat vectors to your application as possible. One of it is by using private connectivity. So by using private connectivity with AWS, what here I have given a sample of how AWS Private Link works for between a SaaS provider and consumer. The consumer, think it's like the enterprise which is consuming the SaaS service. Using AWS Private Link on the SaaS provider side, by providing your service behind a NLB and adding support for Private Link, the SaaS consumer now first gets the security of, okay, all that transfer of data is happening in the AWS cloud itself. It's not going on private internet. Second thing which I want to show here with the animation was around the traffic origination. The traffic originates only from the consumer side. So you don't have to worry about the third party originating any traffic into your VPC. So these are certain elements which are provided directly, and I've seen enterprises lean into it and ask for these features, from SaaS providers, having private connectivity, because like a lot of these enterprises would also have their presence on AWS cloud. And even if they don't have that presence on AWS cloud, they have it in their data center. We have capability to build piping like using direct connect or VPN connectivity right into AWS account, uh, which is the SaaS consumer. That can be an AWS account and can be a hybrid connectivity into on-prem systems as well. So using that capability, you can still have private connectivity with your SaaS application deployed on AWS. So again, what we saw was, by building your SaaS application on AWS, because there are these special things which enterprises would ask for: private connectivity, encrypting with AWS keys, or even having private connectivity to data on S3. It's easier to get all these features when you are building your SaaS application on AWS. We see that with all the with all the compliance tools and everything, because you can build faster, you reduce time to develop that MVP product of yours. We have seen that, like, enterprise, some of the SaaS providers were able to reduce their time to build that MVP by 30 to 50%. Then think about, you want to launch in a different region, right? So you already have your service in one region, you want to launch in a different region or new markets. Because AWS is AWS regions are provided across the globe, you are able to reduce that time to launch new markets as well. Most of the service features in one region are mapped to other region. There might be some variables there. So your team would have to, of course, test the application in another region as well. The SaaS application would have to be configured and tested. There are certain minor differences in different regions. So those would have to be tested. Reduce time to scale your customer usage. So the one part here is, like, on-prem, if you're deploying it on-prem, to scale is very, like, not so easy. With AWS, even if you want to scale very fast, there are capabilities to do that. It's not a limitless storage or compute capability, but you can work with AWS teams if you have a way, like, if you're migrating a very large workload or you want to scale very high, you can work with the AWS teams and achieve that. And finally, with all these tools, your engineering teams can then deploy very fast. That's the whole area here. So that's the main value. Like, if you are developing on AWS for a lot of these enterprises who are also on AWS, you generate that value and generate that flywheel immediately. Again, for your growth and acceleration and profitability, what we see is, by first year, these SaaS providers saw double-digit growth, right? And I said that if you're a SaaS provider, having that growth is the primary factor. If you're not having that growth, then those customers are probably going somewhere else. So we are seeing that customers who are, like, SaaS providers who are developing their services on AWS are seeing that growth. And other thing is the recurring revenue. Because it's a different model, SaaS model is around recurring. So all your enterprise customers will be mostly, if they're happy with your service, they will be recurring customers. It will generate the recurring revenue. And by year 3, you would see your operating margins will be, like, and on average, which we saw from our survey, our operating margins were up by 41%. Gross margins were 70%. So they're like very good margins there. And by year 3, 70% return on investment was met. So of course, it's not an easy lift, right? So if you are a product company right now and you're moving to SaaS, that's a big investment on your part. But at the same time, by doing this faster on AWS, by developing this faster on AWS, you can expect that return on investment as well, which would be pretty fast, because we are trying to build a service based on automation. We're trying to build a service here which would be growing very fast. So I know this is a very crowded slide. I want to take key takeaways here on the best practices, right? So when it comes to compliance or the best practices on AWS, we have created certain guidelines for startups around security. There is, of course, well-architected tool. We did mention the well-architected tool before all as well. So with the well-architected tool, there are different lenses as well. So if you have a SaaS specific solution, you can use a SaaS lens. And at times, I know that a lot of you might think that yes, your team in your organization knows the best about your own architecture. Why do you should use AWS well-architected tool? And I would just like to comment there, like it's not going to probably, at times you might already know what is brought about by well-architected. You might already know the deficiencies within your organizations, but it helps you is also a prioritized list. So if you have like 15 things which you already knew, it'll give you a priority list on what things should go next. Foundational technical review here is something which we work with our partners to support. So there are certain elements around well-architected, doesn't cover the whole well-architected, but it covers reliability, security. So those and operational excellence, those kind of capabilities are covered by foundational technical review, which we work with our partners. So AWS works with partners to onboard them in the foundational technical review, so that we can verify to a level that how they are implementing their SaaS solutions. On AWS, with a lot of these tools like config and AWS Security Hub, CIS AWS benchmarks are provided. So if you want to run this on your architecture, on your environment, AWS environment, you can get a benchmark report of how, if your account meets this or not. So, and you can then work towards closing those gaps if those are identified. I'd just like to bring one story. One of my partners, Couchbase, they're also present here if you have seen their desk. So right from the onset, when they were creating the SaaS solution, they were very engaged with us. We see that their customers are facing issue around, okay, a lot of these customers are on relational databases, how to move into the modern databases. Couchbase was wanted to provide that solution as a SaaS. They worked very closely with the AWS, went through the well-architected review frameworks, followed some of the best practices by AWS SaaS Factory, and came to market with a SaaS solution. We have got feedback from some of their customers that they saw total cost of ownership for like what workloads they were having by 50%. So having this great customer experience can actually help you get that recurring revenue as well as getting that growth for your market. So that's something which I want to depict. This is one partner story I'm sharing here, but we work with a lot of partners and help them towards creating better solutions on AWS. As a key takeaway, I know that we are like over time, so yeah, I would just want to say that for enterprise ready SaaS, think about security and compliance is very important, but the key element is again frictionless onboarding. So if the frictionless onboarding is not there, you won't you won't have that growth from your customers. So that's the key element. Think about security, frictionless onboarding, and you need to support the different SaaS models. As I said, like you would have a free tier, you would have paid tier, you would have enterprise customers. Support all the different models so that you're not losing out on different segments. And the whole key to being SaaS provider and being agile is you want to get to that all the different segments. You don't have to stick to one segment, because then you won't get that growth. And finally, we don't want you to take all the heavy lifting. Use AWS services to get all that shared SaaS services built, right? So leverage AWS capabilities, AWS services there, and focus on building the best experience from your business. Yeah. With that, I'll end this session, but I'm happy to take any questions. I know we are over time right now, so we can take the questions in the hall or like during the happy hour. Thank you.